Hi guys, how are you doing? Okay, so I want to do a little video on depression. Depression is something that a lot of people suffer with, and a lot of people suffer with it in silence. Statistics show that 1 in 4 people are touched by this illness. 1 in 4, that's a huge statistic. If you look about your school, your office, your workplace, 1 in 4 people have depression. And yet it has this stigma attached that you just need to get over it. You just need to cheer up. You just need to look at life a little bit differently. And it really is a very misunderstood. And a lot of people, I think, don't believe that it exists or don't want to believe that it exists and don't want to believe or can't grasp that it affects so much of your body. Personally, I've struggled with depression since I was about 14 years old, maybe 13. I did have a mental breakdown when I was 20, and I recently suffered, well, a couple of years ago, I suffered another very, 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 very bad bout of depression when my mother died. And it's a very debilitating disease. And a lot of people don't understand what it is or why they get it. Everyone that has this disease, it will affect them very, very differently. Depression doesn't care if you're rich, poor, famous, unknown. It doesn't care if you're married. It doesn't care if you're single. It doesn't care if you're black, white. Depression doesn't care. Depression doesn't care who you are. It's blind to who and what you are. It will just select you. 1 in 4 people, remember? With me, I've learned what my triggers were and what my triggers are, and I try and avoid those triggers as much as possible. My triggers tend to be stressful situations, not just stress, but long-standing stressful situations, or very quick or just happened stressful situations. You know, if it's, oh, I've got an exam coming up, to me that doesn't stress me out as much. I have control over that. I know it's coming up, I've had time to prepare. Eventually it will be over, there's an end zone. But if it's a very long-standing stress, for instance, I have spoke about previously the transition period being quite a long process, waiting list after waiting list after waiting list after waiting list, that really has stressed me out to the maximum. You know, long-standing stress wears me down, and it can cause my depression, or it can cause me to be more susceptible to slipping into depression. Now, people that are depressed can have sad days. That doesn't mean that they're depressed. Depression is not being sad. Depression is being consumed, overwhelmed, completely imprisoned by this feeling of impending doom. And if you look at a person's brain who suffered depression for a very, very long time, they've got the prefrontal cortex in the brain. That's responsible for everything you are as a person. Your personality, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. You like to go fishing, you like to go dancing. In a person's brain that has long-standing depression, that area of the brain shrinks. It physically shrinks. If they monitor it, they can see that there's an underproduction of neurons there. That's why when a person's depressed, they just don't care about going dancing anymore. They don't care about going fishing or that competition they look forward to. The amygdala actually enlarges in people that have long-standing depression. So they have an overproduction of hormones, and one of the hormones that they overproduce is cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone that brings on this fight or flight situation. And when you have that in your body, you're stressed. It is a stress hormone. This stress hormone is related to people that are actually dieting and they can't lose the weight. The cortisol affects how your body distributes fat, how it uses your energy. It's also responsible for really you not being relaxed. Cortisol is released in the body so you don't relax. And it really was for protection. If you're in not a safe environment, you shouldn't relax. You have to remove yourself from that unsafe environment. Originally, what we had that for was fight or flight. If we had a saber-toothed tiger outside our cave, or we had some tribe that was going to attack us, we needed that so that we would attack or we would run. It's a very basic instinct that everyone and every creature on Earth has. Unfortunately, as human beings, we have so many influences now. We don't get stressed out about a saber-toothed tiger or a lion or something gonna attack us in that sense. We get stressed out over social media, the news. We get stressed out over relationships. We get stressed out over, oh my God, what did they say about me? We care about all these things that we've really replaced that fight or flight. But again, we don't need it as much or to the extent that a lot of people have it with depression now. It's a lot of it's external, a lot of it's long-standing stress, a lot of it's just we don't deal with stress very well. But stress is a killer. Stress can lead to heart disease, stroke, it can speed up the aging process. If you've ever laid down at night and you can't sleep and you're lying there and your body's relaxed and you're trying to get to sleep and you're not moving, but it feels like your body is screaming. Have you ever felt that? That's cortisol. And when you have that for a very, very long time, it really affects a person. Also, and all my friends know that this is true, if I'm in one of those states where I'm really depressed or something's happened and I'm so stressed out, I'll have a conversation with them and completely forget that I've had that conversation. I'll speak to someone and I'll be like, when's the last time I spoke to you? No, I didn't. Did I? Did I? And I start to tell them a story and they're telling me, yeah, you've told me this. And I can't remember speaking to this person. And that's because the hippocampus in your brain, which is also responsible for memory and how you make memories, it doesn't work so well. I can actually have a very, very stressful event and I'll tell a friend and I actually have to get that friend to remind me what I told them because I know I'm going to forget it. It's the way my brain has learned to deal with extreme stressful situations. I've been through enough in my life that my brain tends to go to that pretty fast. And the brain is a powerful thing. Your brain wants you to be happy. That's why all of a sudden when people die or when you go through and you lose someone, you remember a lot of the good times. You know, your brain tends to forget a lot about the bad times and you remember people fondly after they pass. That's because your brain's trying to make you happy and it's trying to force the happy memories into your brain. It's just programmed wrong. And we've programmed it wrong. We've learned that when someone unfriends us on Facebook, oh my God, it means they hate me. You know, who cares? Who cares? And we learn like, and I'm not demeaning this in any way, but if an earthquake happens halfway across the world, yeah, I want to know that my friends and my family are safe. But the way that it's broadcast in the news, the way that we could have done something to help, no, it's a natural disaster. It is a scary thing, and with all due respect, people go out, my respect goes out to people that this happens to, but I physically can't control it. And your brain knows that's a dangerous situation. So that triggers a certain amount of cortisol. I've had people in my life who just say to me, you just stop thinking about it so much. If I could, I would. Or they just say to me, you just have to be a little bit happier. Okay. And it's like if I had a broken arm or if I had kidney disease, you get sympathy. And the vast cancer patients that have had depression, what was worse, the cancer or the depression? And they'll say, well, the depression was worse. When I had cancer, I wanted to get better. When I had depression, I just wanted to die. So this really is something we have to tackle. We have to stop this stigma. And 1 in 4 people means that 4 of 4 people need to understand this disease, you know? If you're in a nuclear family and there's mummy, daddy, and 2.4 children, one of you is going to have depression. It affects all of us, and it's affecting kids younger and younger. Younger and younger teenagers are getting diagnosed now. Children are being diagnosed with depression. This is changing. It never used to be like this. It's the way the world is changing. With neuroplasticity, you can change the way of thinking. Your brain learns through habit. It's why if you've had a life where a lot of bad things have happened to you, your brain thinks it's going to happen again. And when you have a situation that's out of your control, your brain remembers 10, 20, 30 situations from your past that you couldn't control, and your brain has learned to divert you in this sort of, we're going to react this way. Even if that way leads to disaster, that's how your body's trained itself to react to that situation. I'm very, very weird. I'm not good at long-standing stress, and I'm not very good at personal, very, very, oh my god, it just happened to me, stressful situations. But I'm very good in an emergency. I've got a very good thing. I've been in situations where I've had to get a doctor, I've had to get an ambulance, I've had to administer CPR. I've been in those situations, and when I'm in those situations, my senses are good. All these things that my brain has taught me, that's the one area where, oh, it came in handy then. But those are not everyday situations, and it's nice that I have that. But I am on a voyage of myself to understand my depression, and I think everyone has to be if you have it. If you educate yourself on what's happening to your brain and why you're reacting that certain way and why you're lying in bed at night and your brain just can't stop talking to you, there's a reason. And no matter the situation, as hard as it may be, you might need to hibernate for a little while, and you might need some downtime. You might need times when you're alone, and when you need to cry, and when you need to hit a hole in the wall. But it will pass. It doesn't define you as a person, and I won't let my depression define me. It's something I've had very badly in my life, and I think that on the most part, I have a very good handle on it. At the age of 14 to when my mum died, I had learned how my depression worked, and I knew my triggers and I could control it pretty well after the big one when I was 20. And then when my mum died, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And before that, I slept a lot when I was depressed. Dreamland was like, I'm just going to go to sleep now and I'm going to pretend that everything's good. That was my escape. After the post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm plagued with nightmares. So my depression has changed. And I think that people that have depression have to understand that as well. Situations you go throughout in your life, they're going to change your depression, they're going to change your triggers, they're going to change how you react upon them. And you sometimes can't understand it, especially in the moment. I mean, I've had situations where I've been very, very depressed, something's happened to me, and I've went into this rage, like this ultimate rage, and I'm very aware of what I'm doing. I'm in no way out of control, but it's such strong anger comes over me. But what's happened there, I've been in a state of depression, so I've got all this cortisol, and I'm keeping it under wraps. This gas is inside me, but I've not lit the match, and the minute that very stressful situation happens, boom! And that's when that rage comes out. Unfortunately, that happened to me fairly recently, about a month ago. And I hadn't felt like that in about 10 years. And it really scared me because I've tried so hard throughout my life to control my depression. I learn my triggers. I tell people, look, this will set me off. This thing will depress me. My friends kind of know when I'm going through it now that I'll forget conversations. They know that I'm gonna act funny for a little while. I really want you to know, if you're out there with depression, you're not alone. 1 in 4 people have this. 1 in 4. Do your best to learn about your depression. I'm doing my best to learn about mine. I'm still learning. You're always going to be learning, but that's okay. And once you know what depression is and you know what it is, it's going to change. It's going to change. So you have to actively work towards looking after your brain, especially if you're one of these 1 in 4 people that are going to suffer from it, you know? And although 1 in 4 suffer from it, depression is bound to affect most people at some point in their life. It's just with the 1 in 4, it tends to be reoccurring. I do hope this video has helped. I do hope it's not been too boring for you. I do hope I pronounced all those parts of the brain properly. I don't pretend to be a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. This is things that I've learned through years of just reading, constantly reading and trying to analyze myself and my depression. Again, it doesn't define me and I won't let it define me. And 1 in 4, and it's bound to affect other people as well. You know, they say that by 2020, the #1 cause of death in the world is going to be stress. We just have too much stress. And the 1 in 4 don't deal with that very well already. That number is going to be 2 in 4, 3 in 4, 4 in 4. It's just a matter of time. I do hope the government do put money into this so that GPs know how to treat it better. I do hope they start talking about it in schools. And I do think that we should teach little kids about mental health and how they can just take time out, you know? Take time out, relax. Don't put so much stress on them when they're so little, because a lot of the things you learn in stress happen in your early development stages. And, you know, that can lead to you being the 1 in 4. So again, I hope this video helps. I love you guys. Thank you for supporting me, and I hope that this video really does break down some walls. Depression does exist. It is real. We don't just have to get happy. It goes a little bit deeper than that. We want to be happy. We can feel happy and still be depressed. It's just, we need to be a little bit more gentle with ourselves in certain situations until we master how to deal with it. Love you guys.